Good gentleman from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All out of haikus. I have also lost my mind. Oh my, it is May.
Shall we skip reading? Only members can decide. Looks like we agree. Gentleman has the floor to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 387 is the fiscal year 2022 original appropriation bill for college and universities. Appropriates a total of $629,853,900. One thing I can assure every member, I think, on this floor is partially unhappy with this appropriation, but it is the appropriation that we need to pass to support our college and universities throughout the state of Idaho and show support for our Idahoans that are enrolled in those institutions to help advance their lives and create a better Idaho for our future. I'm happy to answer questions about individual line items or spending, but I would encourage your green light. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Gentleman from 34.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to debate against the bill. House Bill 387 is a reprisal of an earlier appropriation bill for colleges and universities. The prior bill had I shouldn't talk about the prior bill. I should talk about this one. This one has a $2.5 million adjustment downward from the governor's recommendation where we were originally going to stand on this bill. The problem I have with it is that we passed House Bill 377, which is now law. It's not pending legislation, so I think I can talk about law in Idaho. The law from House Bill 377 was the one about dignity and non-discrimination in public education. We decided that no public funding should go towards promoting critical race theory or advocating for social justice indoctrination in our schools. That's what the law says. That's law in Idaho now. When this budget is presented here and it adjusts it by $2.5 million, but we acknowledge that there's far more than $2.5 million in our higher education system being dedicated towards promoting and advocating for critical race theory and social justice promotion in our universities, we would now be violating the very law that we passed just a few days ago in here. That we would be appropriating money to fund exactly what we said public money could not be used for. If you think that any more than $2.5 million is being used in our universities to promote critical race theory, you must vote against this budget. I would contend that more is being spent. A gender equity center at Boise State University, multicultural student services center at Boise State University, cultural and ethnic diversity, Boise State University. Part of our University Foundations course employs critical race theory, doesn't just teach about it, employs it by getting students to do something that goes against their own beliefs and values. University of Idaho Office of Multicultural Affairs, a women's center, LGBTQA office, equity and diversity office. Idaho State University Diversity Resource Center, Janet C. Anderson Gender Center, Research Diversity Outreach, diversity programs. We are spending thousands, millions of dollars on critical race theory and social justice promotion in our universities. We just passed a law that said we would not do that. We should not be appropriating money for that. We've identified many situations at our universities where students are made to feel, based on the color of their skin or whatever situation, social situation they're in, that they should feel bad because they're part of an oppressive majority or feel bad because they're part of an aggrieved minority. That's what critical race theory teaches. That's what we should not promote or advocate for in our universities with public funds. House Bill 377 passed. It's now law. We should back up what we said with that by sending this budget back, adjusting it downward by another $18 million so that our actions here reflect our actions of last week. Thank you.
Is there further debate? The lady from 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be voting no on this bill like I did the last time because we've got the same thing basically returned to us when we requested, and what I would have liked to seen is this budget turned into 4 different budgets. So we could dig deeper into some of these issues that are happening in our college. When we have such a huge budget, there's no way to pick out the problems, and it's just an all or nothing kind of bill. But when you start really looking through the details of these college budgets, all these centers and community resources that they've put on campus, they are doing what the gentleman in District 34 just said. They have this critical race theory part of their culture at the colleges. And so I had a bunch of notes from last time, and I didn't realize we were going to be on this bill today. And I'm not going to get into it all, but you know, a lot of this training in these diversity centers, they're offices, and then they do the training right on site. They also sponsor events for these students. And I've got pages and pages of research on this and the problems in our school, and the only way we're going to be able to address this is on a school-by-school basis, because I don't want to blame University of Idaho for something Boise State's doing. And I'm requesting that we vote no on this, return it, and turn it into 4 budgets, and then we can look at each budget separately. And I think we have the time to do this, especially if we're going to be here through next week, as we've heard. I think we have the time to do this, to send it back and just turn it into 4 separate bills so we can look at each program.
Is there further debate? Hearing none? We'll go, gentleman from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make sure everyone had a chance to get everything they needed to off their chest. I know, Mr. Speaker, that technically
When we debate, we're not just getting things off our chest. He's attributing motives to.
Please continue, gentleman from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the good gentleman from 34 is correct. Technically, we are debating House Bill 387. Technically, we are debating whether to appropriate some money to our 4-year institutions. Technically, we are debating whether we should further cut, or to use the terms of a microeconomist, make a downward adjustment to the budget, a divestment in our own public institutions. That's what we're debating. What I feel, however, that we're really debating is the question of how scared should we be of social justice and critical race theory. Now, as a black man and someone who is deeply familiar with these concepts and ideas at both a practical level and an academic level, I have been saddened by this conversation. I think it has been disappointing, and I think it's been problematic. Now, those words I just used might seem a little bit bombastic, and I'm not prone to bombast, so let me explain myself. I am a proud Boise State graduate. I'm just going to lay my bias out there for everyone to hear. I went there on the GI Bill. That place provided opportunities I had never seen before in my life. It changed my life. And then I was the chief academic, excuse me, Mr. Speaker. And then I was the chief academic officer for the State Board of Education. So I have tremendous bias towards all of our public post-secondary institutions who do tremendous work, not just teaching kids, who, by the way, are adults. I'm talking about the research that they do for the Cattlemen and the Wheat Commission, the interns that they spill out year after year for all the small businesses in Idaho. I'm talking about the total economic and social impact on our state. And while they are not perfect institutions, I think we can all agree on that. I think we can all agree we are not a perfect institution. They do absolutely essential work. And I fear, based on my interpretation of the months-long discussion, the thousands of emails, the millions of social media posts, that our appreciation for our public post-secondary institutions is dangerously low. Now, before talking about the claims that I've heard over the last few months as to why we should further divest from our public institutions, I would like to define, rather than describe, social justice and critical race theory. Social justice, friends, is merely the social equivalent of legal justice. That's it. And legal justice is the pursuit of fairness in the eyes of the law. So social justice is just the pursuit of fairness in the eyes of society. It's a process. It's one I believe in, and I pray that everybody here believes in it too. The good news is I don't think our conflict is about social justice. I think our conflict is about how we pursue fairness in the eyes of society. That's where ideas like critical race theory come in. So what is it? As I used to tell my undergraduate students, there are 4 things you need to know about critical race theory. Number 1, it is a theory for which there is no universally accepted idea or definition, even by its proponents. It's not a thing, it's not an object, it's an idea. Number 2, it tries to explain our social situation and to explain the present through a more inclusive and representative version of the past. If you can break it down to a single thing, number 3, this is it. Critical race theory and critical race theorists do believe this single thing: that America's social institutions, our legislatures, our courts, our schools, you name it, they do have, to varying extents, they are embedded to varying extents with some bias towards people of color. I don't think that's controversial. When you look at outcomes, virtually every law and policy that we maintain has a disparate and adverse impact on people of color. Housing, health, education, wealth, income. People of color always come out on the losing end. Always. And I don't think it's unfair to acknowledge it. And perhaps most importantly, number 4, critical race theory does not hold that systemic racism in the United States is irredeemable. It is not. It is fixable. In fact, most critical race theorists argue the opposite, that we can fix it. Critical race theory was born in the legal profession by lawyers who knew that in order for America to achieve its dreams and its ideals, that we had to make improvements to the lawmaking process. It does not judge all of us and subject us to predetermined outcomes. It just acknowledges some realities that are hard for lots of people to acknowledge. Now, there is no doubt that talking about critical race theory can be difficult and uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially people who don't want to or don't have to think about these things. But to argue that it is divisive and shouldn't be taught to adults on our post-secondary campuses seems a little ill-informed and impulsive. And any decision that we make based on critical race theory should be based on the theories themselves, not someone's interpretation of those theories. Especially when the people who are interpreting that theory don't like that theory. I like pizza. I don't ask my neighbor who hates pizza what they think of the new pizza shop in town. And if I do, I don't rely solely on their perspective. Now, I've heard repeatedly claimed that critical race theory is divisive. It divides us. But that claim is historically ignorant, and it presupposes unification. It assumes that we are all sitting around the campfire, holding hands, black and white, tall, short, rural, urban, rich, poor, you name it, singing Kumbaya. And critical race theory jumped out of the woods, said, break it up, break it up. No more good times. It's not the way it is. The truth is that our federal government, our state governments, our local governments, countless private enterprises have spent hundreds of years dividing us, telling us whose property and who's not, where I can live, where I can't, where we can eat, whether I can vote, what my mortgage interest rate is. So I can't settle for vagaries anymore, Mr. Speaker. If I am to believe that social justice and critical race theory is dividing us, here is what I need to hear. I need to hear actual stories about how it is causing interpersonal harm between you and others. How is it dividing you from your friends? How is it dividing you from your family? How is it preventing you from developing relationships with strangers? Causing fights on the internet.
Mr. Speaker, I object.
State your objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Talking about how critical race theory in your families, in your homes, this is not relevant to the bill at hand. We're talking about funding the colleges and how we're going to fund the colleges
Your point
and
is
if we're
well
going
taken.
to fund the college.
The gentleman was going to work his way back to the budget bill before us.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So let me just summarize that. Social justice is just the pursuit of fairness in the eyes of society, and critical race theory is just an acknowledgement that our social institutions have some bias in them. And if we care, if we are willing to talk to one another and hear, not just listen, but hear, we can fix it. So, against that backdrop, Mr. Speaker, I now feel prepared to address what I think have been the two overarching claims as to why we should divest in our public institutions further than we already have. The first claim is that indoctrination is afoot. Our students are being forced to accept sets of beliefs uncritically. That is what indoctrination is. We've been told that faculty are teaching students to hate America, that faculty are promoting racist ideas, that they are retraining students' minds. We've been fed countless anecdotes about students being bullied or belittled for their beliefs, but drastic cuts to higher education cannot be based in anecdote alone. It cannot be. We need a more reliable way to determine whether indoctrination is occurring. Fortunately for us, attempted indoctrination is a violation of multiple existing policies. The State Board of Education is pretty clear on this. Faculty may not force students to make personal or political decisions. They may not. And all of the institutions know that that is their North Star. So let's pick our favorite punching bag, Boise State University. What do they say about this? Well, if you look...
Well, I'm going to rule it was the proponents, was the opponents of the bill that are saying we should vote this down because of these things that are taught. Now, the gentleman stays generally in between the white lines here, but
Mr. Speaker, it wasn't about things that were taught. It was about advocacy and promotion. The law says nothing about things that are taught, and no debate was made that way.
Mr. Speaker. All right. Okay, the House will be at ease. Take 5. The House will be in order. Prior to going at ease, the House was in the 7th order of business. After our suspension, and we were debating House Bill number 387. The speaker will remind the body that you will speak when you're recognized by the chair. So if you have an objection, you say, Mr. Speaker, I have an objection. I say, for example, good gentleman from District 34, state your objection. And then we would proceed, but we would not do what we did before we went at ease. All right? Everybody got that? Well, with that, we'll proceed. We interrupted the gentleman from 19 who was debating House Bill 387. Gentleman from 19, you have the floor to continue your debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize to the good members for slowing the process down when I meant to speed it up. So I'm going to spare you, and I'm going to skip over everything I want to say, everything I feel like I've earned the right to say, and I'm going to get right to the point. Two things. We need to do two things. The first thing we need to do is we need to do our constitutionally mandated job, and we need to vote yes on this budget. And to be crystal clear, voting yes on this budget does not mean you endorse critical race theory. Voting yes on this budget does not mean you hate Idaho values. What it means is that you believe in due diligence. What it means is that you have a basic respect for the value that our higher ed institutions provide to this state. The second thing we need to do is we need to lower the temperature on this debate. We need to lower the temperature for the sake of our children, who need to know that the adults in the room and their supposed leaders have the ability to constructively navigate difficult, complex, and controversial public policy problems. We need to lower the temperature on this debate for the sake of our business community, because this debate is having an adverse impact on their ability to spin up new businesses, to recruit and retain talent, to grow, to operate. And we need to lower the temperature on this debate for the sake of our public post-secondary institutions. They are doing their absolute best with almost no help from us. And we are asking them to do more every day while giving them less. So if you take nothing else from what I've just said, please know that we are hurting our students, and when we hurt our students, we hurt ourselves. I'm asking, please do what duty and responsibility requires and give this your green light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Gentleman from 14.
Mr. Speaker, we have a couple of committees that need to meet, and we've got a lot of people that are a little upset here, so why don't we take an hour recess and have those committees meet? With that, Mr. Speaker, I would move that the House recess until the hour of 3:45.
We have a motion to recess for 1 hour. It's not a non-debatable motion. For placing the motion, are there quick announcements? Hearing none. Quick announcement, good lady from 25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Resource and Conservation will meet really quickly for a review of the minutes, and we need a quorum. So please swing by House Resources if you are on that committee. I promise not to take more than 10 minutes of your time.
Gentleman from 21.
The Revenue and Taxation Committee will meet at the on the conclusion of Juden rules and resources.
Gentleman from 10.
Mr. Speaker, Judiciary will meet in room 41. It's a different room to approve minutes. We'll go quickly. First 9 get to vote.
Okay, 3 committees will be meeting. We understand there's overlap. You will accommodate that as best you can. We have a motion to recess for 1 hour. All in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Good gentlemen, we're voting here. It appears the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The House stands at recess for 1 hour. The House will be in order. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will record their presence. Oh, we're in the, so this will be a little difficult. Record your presence. Has everyone recorded his presence? to reestablish the quorum so we can continue business, right? I think they're all here. Clerk will lock the machine, record the roll. Roll call shows 64 present with 5 absent and excused. A quorum is present. Prior to going at ease, the House was in the 7th order of business. Under suspension, we were debating House Bill 387. That debate is open. Is there further debate on House Bill 387? Good lady from 35.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I debated, and we had another one of these. It may have been this bill. It's been kind of a long session, so we've had a lot of bills that we've debated. But and I just wanted to remind you that I've had several emails from parents and grandparents who are very concerned about this critical race theory that is being taught in our schools, our colleges. And the one parent expressed, or the grandparent actually expressed, that the daughter couldn't take the rhetoric anymore. She had all she could take. It was very costly for her parents when she chose not to be in school anymore. But I think they could see the danger of what she was learning, and I think they're actually happy that she chose a different route. And one thing that they said, which I totally agree, it is wrong to shove a personal agenda on others. Another gentleman said, the very institutions that we thought were independent are being swayed by political pressure. I didn't want to take a long time, but I just have one more point that I wanted to make. So we took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States as well as Idaho. And if you have your Constitution, in Article 9, Section 6, talks about religious test and teaching, but there's more to it than that. About halfway through this particular section, it says, no sectarian or religious tenets or doctrines shall ever be taught in the public schools, nor shall any distinction or classification of pupils be made on account of race or color. I think we've had enough information that we know that this has been happening. At the end, it just says, nor shall any teacher or any district receive any of the public school monies in which the schools have not been taught in accordance with the provisions of this article. And sectarian, just for a definition, is it's a strong support for a religious or a political group that you belong to, and it often involves conflict with other groups. I think we have a lot of evidence that there is this is occurring in our colleges, and this is the only way we have to wake up those who are teaching this critical race theory as well as other things, and who are actually driving some of the good kids, well, I shouldn't say good kids, driving some of the kids who have different ideas than the critical race theory. They're being driven out because there's so much, as we've talked about, going on, and we need to redo this budget again, is what we need to do, and take out a lot of they're getting millions and millions of dollars as it is, and we need to show our taxpayers, our parents and our grandparents, that we are not going to support this in our schools, in our colleges. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Good lady from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate in favor of the bill.
Of the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I have permission to refer to legislation that has passed this body?
Without objection, the lady may refer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this body took a strong step in passing House Bill 377, where we said We did not forbid the teaching of any particular theory from this end to that end. What we did affirm is free speech and freedom of instruction, and we said you cannot force a student to personally affirm, adhere, or adopt a position that any sex, race, ethnicity, religion, color, or national origin is inherently superior or inferior. You cannot be adversely treated on that basis, nor can you be held responsible for something done in the past by any member of those classes. And we said, no money shall be used for those purposes. That is a very strong policy statement. I do recognize problems of the past on both sides of this issue. But we have made a strong policy statement against discrimination and dignity in our classrooms, and that no money shall be spent for those purposes. With that policy, I am comfortable voting yes on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Lady from 8.
Thank you, Speaker. I spoke against this bill on April 7th when it was Senate Bill 1179. And what I discussed was the fact that on January 27th, on a Wednesday, we had all of the university presidents come to the House Education Committee and talk about some of these issues that we had concerns about. And the president of BSU, Dr. Trump, was questioned about some of the foundational classes, and we asked for the syllabi of those classes. And you know what? We still to date have not received them, despite the fact that the hearing on Senate Bill 1179, or when we voted on it on April 7th, maybe she didn't hear all the testimony in regards to some of the issues on these foundational classes that we were seeking. This budget was suggested that $20 million be removed for the critical race theory related subject area classes to be removed, and the funding for the directors to be removed. That's not much of an ask, and it was about, $2 million that all of that's been removed. We've worked really hard over the past few months trying to make sure that we protect our citizens and our parents and our schools from this sort of, I guess, not indoctrination, but as far as teachings. The $20 million is a drop in the bucket compared to the $73 million of CARES funding that the universities have already received. We're not even talking about the ARPA money yet to come, which is going to be more millions and millions of dollars. So I think just to make sure that the universities understand that this is something we would like to see addressed, and that they would like to take it seriously, as serious as some of us have taken it, that we could at least send this back for the $20 million decrease. I'd appreciate your no vote on this budget. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Good lady from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to share a little bit about what our higher education system means to our economy. I know some people have cited their bias. I'm a Bronco fan for life. My dad went to Boise State back when it was Boise Junior College. I have a brother who graduated. But there are also just a lot of good statistics that I think back up my strong affinity for Boise State. It is really the top workforce and economic development engine in our state. It provides education for more than 26,000 students. They receive top quality education, and Boise State actually landed more Truman Scholars last year than Harvard did. They have over 200 majors, and more than half of the state's post-secondary graduates come from Boise State. Over 100,000 alumni whose lives have been changed get that translated into earning power, that translates into tax revenue from our state. Those are customers for our businesses, and the ripple effect is vast. It employs about 3,300 people directly and generates 7,000 jobs. For every dollar the state allocates to Boise State, the university returned $8 in economic activity. That's a darn good investment. And when you contribute the contributions of Boise State alumni, that jumps to $24 for every dollar the state spends. Industry leaders often credit Boise State for their innovation and for their decisions to expand in Boise or locate in Boise. I am disappointed. I will support this budget. It's not the budget I would like to be supporting. I don't understand why we are cutting our universities, our economic engine, at a time when we have so many dollars sitting on the bottom line. So it's with reluctance that I will support it, because I know this is going to mean real cuts to resources for our students, academic advisors, research support staff, and all those supports that help our students succeed. And so I'm still puzzled as to why these cuts are being forced, but we need to pass this budget. We need to support our universities. These students are our future. It means this is our future economy we're voting on right here, and I urge your green light.
Is there further debate? Good lady from 10.
Thank you, Speaker. I would just say I believe in a free market solution and that students can vote with their feet. And if they, just like was said earlier, if there's something going on there that they just can't abide, they have two things they can do. They can actually try to make a change, and I think if enough people decided that's what they wanted to do, I believe that the colleges and universities would listen, because it hasn't mattered that this body took money away from them before, and I'm not sure it will matter again unless the students are making that decision. That's a free market solution. We vote with our feet. Thank you. So I'm going to vote for the appropriation.
Is there further debate? Lady from 1.
To debate for a second time.
Down from 24 for the first time.
Yes, thank you, sir.
The other floor.
Yeah, thank you. I stand up because I know that the lady from 1 just gave us a handout right here, and so I wanted to ask her a question, and I didn't know if I'd be able to debate after that without debating for the first time. But
you wish to pose a question to the...
Yeah, I would like to pose a question to the lady from 1.
Will the good lady yield?
Yes.
Lady yields. Yeah, thank you. Good lady, you put out a handout here. It's called Social Justice Related Spending at Idaho's Public Four-Year Institutions. Are these funds that are coming from state funds or budgeted funds, or is this coming from the fees paid through the student body fees? Yeah, this was just handed out to us just a few moments ago. Yeah. Okay. 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 All right. So, so this is not information that I've handed out. So, and yeah. And so, but I had a question about the source of the information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the source is all calculations are taken from university publicly available budgets from their website.
Follow up?
Yield to another question.
Sure.
Lady yields. Yeah, good lady. I'm sorry, but does this include the funds that are used, not from this budget, but from the student fees that are paid by students? They have tuition and fees are controlled more by their student body association.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. This is mainly from the state funding. The fees would be minuscule for this. That's to my best of my understanding. But it's straight from their budget book.
Excuse, follow-up question. Yeah, when she said budget book, are you referencing, good
Are
lady?
you debating or clarifying your
Another
question?
follow it.
Will the gentleman yield, or the good lady yield to another question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sure.
The lady yields.
Yeah, just for clarification, good lady, when you say budget book, you're talking about JFAC's budget book or some other budget book?
Lady from Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. No, so the Boise State money is from their budget and planning files. It's their university funding. The University of Idaho is from their budget book. This is the state money that goes into the colleges, and so they. You know, we forget that these are public entities. These are not private colleges. These are public colleges. We are funding these colleges.
And Mr. Speaker,
Gentleman, for another question or to debate?
I'm going to debate.
You have the floor to debate.
Yeah. My concern with the decision that we have to make here today is that we don't clutter up some of our minds with different numbers. And the budget before us has been trimmed. We have passed House Bill, a previous bill today or this week dealing with this, been signed by the governor to deal
Therefore,
with.
it's in bounds to discuss its law now.
Right. The critical race theory issues, we've made a big presentation. The good lady from 30, I believe it is, mentioned that this covers the State Board of Education, the universities, all of our schools. So I think a lot of that issue is out there. Yes, they're in the middle of their budgeting process. A lot of the fees that we've seen previously, and I'm not sure if this list includes those, are the actual fees that the student body collects on themselves. And there's a substantial amount. Like at Boise State, if I recall correctly, it's roughly $1,400 per student pays in fees, but those are not their tuition, and that's not the state support. But that's like how much per student. So you figure how much they're paying, and if these fees include all of that, and I suspect much of this is included in that, but I don't know all of it, we need to take that in consideration. The universities are like battleships, and we're trying to turn them quickly, and that's pretty difficult to do. And I think that they've heard the message, and that's important. We heard today that we've requested information on their foundational support classes that they require, and it didn't come in immediately, but we've received that 2 to 3 weeks ago in a variety of different ways. I've seen it. It is complicated. There's many classes with many curriculums and many syllabus out there, and to try and gather that in for ourselves or anyone, it's very complicated. That's one reason why it took so long for them to get back to us. But the universities are important. The students that are going to those universities, they have made commitments for their education to delay this budget or cut this budget arbitrarily, and I would say it's an arbitrary number we've selected here and has been suggested to us. That amount of money may seem like it's going to be a big win if we cut that, but we don't know really how that's going to affect the students. These students go to these schools and have expectations, and as the good lady from 10 said, they can walk, they can avoid these things, they don't have to participate in many of these things. The foundational courses, I can't remember how many are there. I want to say there's 100 or more of these foundational courses. So if you're in a major geology major or you're in a business major, some of those courses have these foundational options available to you. It's not one course that's all critical race theory that you might sit down and take for a semester. These are little elements that they say, in order to graduate from university, we want you to have a well-balanced education, and we need to have these general foundational principles. Some of them do have what you would call critical race theory that have worked into them, but I think our direction to them will help them turn this around. We can't go back and tell them what to do at the beginning of this year, but we're talking about next year's budgets, and I think we'll have a big impact. I encourage you to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? For the first time, lady from 5.
Mr. Speaker, there's been quite a bit of conversation today about we want them to get our message, we want them to hear us. I'm just an Idaho farm girl. I feel like we're beating a dead horse. I think they've gotten the message. They're highly educated. I don't like this budget. I feel like Goldilocks, too hot, too cold, just right. Where is just right? The just right number just keeps going up and up and up. I represent a district with a university. I think they're doing a fine job. They recruited an amazing president to come to Idaho. He quit a very lucrative job. He was the CFO for one of the most prestigious law firms in the world. And he quit that job to come back here and help out his alma mater. And he got here, and what did we say? We said, oh, oops, by the way, you're $22 million in debt. Why don't you fix that? So he spent the last year fixing this shortfall that nobody told him until he got here. And now we're saying, oh, and now you're doing these horrible things. We're going to give you another $500,000 to fix. And we're going to freeze tuition. And we're going to beat down the reputation of the institutions in this state, these fine institutions that we have in this state that we should be proud of. And we're talking about $2.5 million. For goodness sakes, they've got the message. They're not dead. They're PhDs. Let's just support this budget and get on with it.
Is there further debate? Good lady from District 25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, probably ought to declare Rule 80.
Your declaration under Rule 80 will be noted in the journal. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really wasn't going to stand up, but I think I will. And I want to talk a little bit about the global market and Idaho's future, educating Idaho's future. I serve on the Idaho EPSCoR committee, which allocates National Science Foundation monies into states that don't get a lot of research money. And I can tell you we're making a difference in that field. And if we don't compete on a global market with some of our biggest competitors by educating our students, we're doing a disservice to the state of Idaho and to our families and our future. I know when I was in high school, I could not wait to leave. I wanted to leave so badly. When I packed my bags and left my home in Salmon, Idaho, I did not look back. And I went to the University of Idaho, and I can tell you, my eyes were open. And I had a lot of choices to make while I was there, and I saw a lot of things that made me uncomfortable. But I was also able to have uncomfortable conversations around the things that mattered about my future and my education. And if I didn't want to take a class, I didn't take a class. And that's what our students have the ability to do today. I know when my son was up at the University of Idaho, the newspaper wrote an article that he and his fraternity brothers just were quite upset about. They went to the editor and said, hey, can we write a contrary or an opposing opinion? And the editor said, well, why not? That's how this works. I'm going to agree with the good lady from 10. These kids can speak with their feet. They can make the choices on whether to take those diversity classes if they want, or what they look like. But folks, this is a good budget, and I encourage you to give its green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, will the good gentleman from District 4 please stand and close the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to give this the good college try. I also need to declare Rule 80, Mr. Speaker.
Your declaration of Rule 80 will be noted in the journal.
Good ladies and gentlemen, this is a budget, full stop. This is not a policy bill, but we have had a policy bill. And we have dealt with policy issues. Permission to speak or to read from statute, Mr. Speaker.
I believe you have that permission baked in.
What's that?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's already there, okay. 33-139, prohibition on the expenditure of monies for certain purposes. No money shall be expended by the State Board of Education and any entity under the State Board of Education's jurisdiction or any school district, public charter school, or public institution of higher education for any purpose prohibited in Section 33-138 Idaho Code, House Bill 377. If that doesn't give you comfort that we're going to make changes in our higher education institutions, I don't think anything ever will. This is a budget bill, full stop. One of the things I noticed is I don't know that we mentioned a single number throughout the entire debate. There was a handout that you received. I just wanted to point out one of the numbers is $4.971 million from apparently the English department at Boise State. Apparently we don't need to teach English anymore, because I'm guessing that's their full budget. So I'm not sure we can count on those numbers as being the perfect example of how we should budget. But I also realize that we have talked about policy issues, and these topics can create strong emotions, and they should cause strong emotions, because we're talking about the future lives of Idahoans. How are they better prepared to take care of themselves? How are they better prepared to take care of their families in the future? We're also talking about the future economic success of Idaho. One of the number one things that businesses are concerned about if they move to Idaho is, do you have an educated workforce? Because if you don't, we'll find somewhere else to go. So these are important discussions that we have. But I also think we need to take a step back and focus on what is truly the best outcome for Idaho. Take away the emotions, take away the policy-related fears. Let's focus on what will help Idaho move forward. Mr. Speaker, can I ask consent to read a quote?
Without objection, the gentleman may read a quote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the recess, I read an article, and there was a quote in there that just absolutely hit me as being relevant to this discussion on so many levels. And unfortunately, it comes from a local leader in Meridian and Kuna who lost her life over the weekend in a car accident. I do not know her personally, but many of you may know her, Lisa Holland. And there was a quote in this article, and it just reminded me on multiple levels of what we should be acting like as a body and what we value in higher education. And it really tied it together so beautifully. And this quote was her mantra. And she says, "My mantra, never stop learning, never stop doing, never stop giving. Try to inspire change by looking at something from a different perspective through collaboration, gathering stakeholders, and having an open mind." I can't imagine a better quote to act as something that we need to think about as we act as a body here in consideration of a budget for institutions of higher learning where we expect students to never stop learning, never stop doing, never stop giving, and we inspire them to look at something from a different perspective through collaboration and gathering stakeholders and having an open mind. To me, that is the epitome of what we expect from higher education. I ask for your support today to support Idaho, to support Idahoans, and to support our future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Debate is closed. Maybe he'll come when we ring the bell. The question before us is, shall House Bill number 387 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will record their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and read the pairs.
Addis votes aye. Christensen votes nay. Gibbs votes aye. Crane votes nay. Kingsley votes aye. Palmer votes nay.
The vote count shows 49 in favor with 20 against. House Bill number 387 has passed the House, will be transmitted to the Senate.